Okay, looks like we're live. I know some people are going to be a little late. That's fine. Come in early just to. I'm not as early as usual just because I was talking to my sister on Marco Polo. So anyway, like I always say, I try to come in a few minutes early to give people a little bit more time to start filtering in and get their notifications. I know not everybody gets a notification. Some people might not get a notification until 3 days down the road. I noticed it's like that on Rumble too. So I don't know what the deal is. It's like, why bother having a notification, especially for a live show, if you're not going to get it until after the show's over with? That doesn't make any sense. It's silly. So Deb is busy, but she'll be here eventually. She she has a refrigerator being delivered. I almost said developed. Hi, Denise. So what was I going to say to start with? Oh, I always like to let people know right off the bat that even though it's been good lately, no, not getting cut off from YouTube. I just never know. I'm afraid I'm going to say that, and then all of a sudden I'm going to anyway. So just to be certain, I always have a backup stream ready to go, except that it's set on private. So people don't go to the wrong stream when, the wrong live stream waiting for me to come on. So if for some reason I get cut off, I will let you know in chat if I'm going to the second stream, to the backup stream. And the backup stream is linked in the description. And usually Deb's pretty good about gathering that link and also putting it in the chat. But it's in the description box below this video. So if you go there too soon, though, and it's still set at private, because I have to change the setting to public, and and then it takes a minute to get it going. So just be patient. Hopefully we won't have to do that. Hopefully it'll be as good as it's been lately, which has been nice. It's been so nice to just get on here and not be interrupted like that. It's so horribly frustrating when that happens. So, and it seemed like there was something else I was going to say before I get into the topics du jour. And what was it? Now I'm having a brain cramp. I'll think of it eventually, even if I have to talk about it later. Oh, I know what I was going to say. And I wanted to say this kind of right off the bat, that for people who, what am I trying to say? So a lot of you, those of you who already watch me live and make it a habit of doing that, you know that what I do is I take these live shows and then I cut them down into try my best to get them down to 20 minutes or less. But if I've got a lot of really good information in there, I don't want to cut too much of it out. And so sometimes they're longer, but I do try to whittle them down, and then I put them as a standalone video per topic on my other channel. Now, for some reason, there's always going to be somebody that has an issue with any changes that you make. And I just want to put this out there that at least through the summer, you're probably going to see it'll probably be pretty normal to see 3 to 4 videos a week on my main channel that are made from live shows. And the reason for that is I'm finding it's one of the best ways I can streamline my time, because I can sit here, I can do the live, and we can have fun. Then but now I've already shot my videos that I can then turn into standalone videos. So it's just a matter of waiting for it to finish processing on YouTube, download it, and make any necessary changes and cuts to get it down to a tolerable length. So that means I can still do the lives and record a video at the same time. And that works really good. Not that I'll still always have my Monday this and that videos. And I'm still going to try to have at least one other video a week that's a pre-recorded type video. But especially with all the gardening and everything going on, and it's just been so much busier, and it's good busy. It's the good kind of busy, and I'm loving it. But that does free up a lot of time for me. And where I can still have all day Tuesday to not worry too much about YouTube related stuff and just focus on my grandbabies. So that's been nice, especially yesterday because I had all 3 grandbabies and, it Patrick was gone yesterday most of the day because he had some projects he had to get done, and, wouldn't you know, that's the day all 3 of them, especially the littlest one, Rowan, because she's got an attitude, she's a little Miss Tude, and, they were a handful, especially her. Definitely a handful. She was mad about everything. And so they needed a little more one-on-one yesterday, I'll say, and not having grandma be distracted by editing videos and answering questions on YouTube. It's all good though. I mean, they're only going to be this young once, and it's something I could look back and laugh at. It's like at one point the kids were all playing with the foosball table, and Rowan was over there mad, screaming. I was sitting in this very room. I was sitting in a recliner just watching them because by this point I was already exhausted. So I'm just like, I'm just going to sit in this recliner. And I was talking to my sister on Marco Polo while watching them. I was facing them and I could see the top of her head and she's screaming. And I'm thinking she's mad at her cousin, typical because she'd been doing that all day. But then I realized her screams were getting a little more desperate. I told my sister, I better go over there and see what's going on because maybe I could only see the top of her head because she's a little tiny anyway. So I go over there to find that she had a little bit of her skin of her hand stuck in the foosball table, the poles that go through the rails, stuck in there. Somehow her skin got kind of pulled into that. And so she was just stuck. Poor baby. So I rescued her. She was fine, but I really still think she was more mad than anything. Because if you heard her cry, you'd say, that is one mad baby. Because she's a ball of fire, a definite ball of fire. I mean, that one, she's so little bitty, and her mom comes to pick her up, and I said, do you want to just carry her out like that, or you want me to put her socks and shoes on her? She goes, better put her socks and shoes on her because she doesn't like it when I carry her. She has to walk everywhere. Like, okay, little Miss Independent Pants. That's just fine. Reminds me of somebody else I know. So, and her dad. Her dad was the same way. I remember when Ryan was, I don't remember how old he was, but we're walking through the parking lot from the car and I'm holding his hand and I got Justin in the carrier and I'm holding Ryan's hand and he pulls his hand out of mine and says, I can walk myself. And I'm like, well, that's just too bad. Not why we're going through the parking lot. Yeah. So Rowan is so much like her father. It's insane. Of course, Jax is like his dad in other ways. So yeah. Anyway, isn't it time? Oh my goodness, it's past time. I've been talking 5 minutes too long to get into the topics of the day. So today is just a question and answer. So hello everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. So I'm here for another Rain Country Q&A, and I believe this is number 14. So some of these are questions people ask me, over the past couple of weeks, and actually one question is one that I can't remember if I just made it up. I did. I made up the question myself. I don't think anyone's asked me this. So if I have time to get to that one, I will. Because I think it's a good question. If I don't say so myself. So oh, right, Tammy. Sorry, stopping and reading comments. I try to read the chat. So that's the only thing I hate about when I'm doing the standalone video and I'm editing. I'm constantly looking at the chat instead of looking at the camera because I'm trying to talk and teach while I'm keeping up on comments the best I can. So it's kind of yeah. So anyway, the first topic I wanted to cover was solar oven cooking. Now, unfortunately, I didn't write down what the exact question was, but somebody was asking me about solar oven cooking. And I do have videos. Oh, goodness. Now I can't remember. Did I link to that video in the description box? I think I did link to a video on tips on shopping for a solar oven. So hopefully I did do that. But for those who are interested, if I know people are like, oh, well, there's the All American Sun Oven, and I don't have one of those, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. Personally, at this point, because of my own personal issues with the company, uh, and what, yeah, I mean, and it could just be me. It could just be me, but I'm just not, I decided I'm not interested in their product. I already had a solar oven long before I even heard of All American, but it's no longer made. Mine is a solar bore. We bought it. Gosh, I don't even know. It was long before I even had my YouTube channel. And it was a more local person that was saying they had that one and recommended it. So we bought it. But yeah, that one's not made anymore. So I can't even link to it. But I did actually, after somebody had told me after I got my channel going who had the same solar oven, says, do you know you can set up a affiliate with them? And I'm like, oh, really? I didn't know anything about affiliates. He had to instruct me about that. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. I should look into that. And so I did have an affiliate for a while, which was nice, but then they went out of business. And it might be because of the All American Sun Oven. I don't know. What I can tell to the best of, just from what I've learned from other people and looking at videos and images of the products, my guess is that the All American is made better. The Solarvore is made cheaply. That was one of the things I realized as soon as I got it in. Like, I paid $200 for it. It doesn't seem like it just seemed like it was made kind of cheaply. Like it's got two layers to the front cover, or the clear part, and the back of it is a thinner plastic. It's not. It's the front section is thick, but the back is just like an extra layer for insulation. It's actually pretty thin, and it was basically just taped into place with like a clear plastic tape. And I'm like, well, then the other day, but it's worked and it's lasted for years. But then a couple weeks ago, or was it last week, the kids were all playing on the deck. And I always keep it out on the deck, especially this time of year. And Rowan and Jace took that lid, laid it on the deck, and decided to start jumping up and down on it. And they cracked that back piece. But thankfully, it wasn't the harder plastic front. But I did what they did and just took some clear plastic tape and taped across the crack and then retaped the edges where it had pulled away because the kids were jumping on it. Anyway, that's a side note, but it's still, despite all that, it's been a decent enough oven. I've been doing some solar oven baking in it already, which is pretty impressive this time of year because we have such a short season to be able to use a solar oven and have it, actually get the food done. But we've had nice enough and long enough sunny days. I've been actually able to, bake a chicken, make some soup, and I did a meatloaf the other day. Unfortunately, the potatoes didn't get done. The meatloaf got done, but the potatoes didn't get done. But it was kind of a weird day where it was like sunny and then cloudy and sunny, cloudy, sunny. So now, mostly what I was going to talk about was not so much the comparison between different sun ovens or solar ovens, like I put in the description box, that tips on shopping for a solar oven. Oh, by the way, also in that video, and in the description box, I linked to a blog page where somebody gives instructions on how to just make your own solar oven, basically out of trash, cardboard, aluminum foil, an old picture frame with the glass in it. You can build your own for very cheap. And if you do two boxes, you can take between, one box is smaller than the other, and you got maybe at least a gap that big between the sides. You can just stuff the sides with balled up newspaper, and that will give that insulation layer. So anyway, yeah, if you go to that video, you can find the link to that in the description under that video. So you can even build your own and not have to spend $300, $400, $500 on a solar oven. And there are different sizes and costs and types, and it's all going to depend on your lifestyle and what you need it for, how you plan on using it. Are you going to use it year round? Which I could not do here. Absolutely not. We only get a total of 3 months of sun, so duh. But it's still nice to have. I still like using it when I can. Um, but the trick is there are some differences in baking in a solar oven. Now, I should say cooking in a solar oven. I can't remember if I've ever tried baking bread. I don't think I have. I need to at some point. But I do meals and soups and things like that, or things that just need to be heated up. So easy. But no matter I think no matter what your solar oven is, well, I'm sure that will play a part as well as how much direct sun you get and how hot it gets and how well insulated your solar oven is. It's still generally like using a slow cooker, except you don't use as much water, if any. So, like if you're doing a roast, for example, or baking a chicken, if I'm doing it on the wood stove, I'm going to add a good amount of water to the bottom of it so it doesn't burn and it keeps it moist in there, and the meat doesn't dry out and all that. But in a solar oven, you don't add any water to your roast, to your chicken, none, because it doesn't need it. It's going to build up enough moisture on the inside without added water. And by adding water to the pan that you're using, it's actually going to increase the time it takes it to bake when it's in a solar oven. Now, there's obviously little tricks that you can use. So having a solar oven that, like mine, has the reflectors that I can take off. I don't know if the ones that come with the All American Sun oven are removable. I've never seen it without the reflectors on. And sometimes you don't want the reflectors on. Even here, I don't always want the reflectors on. If it's a really hot day and I know what I stuck in there is going to cook really fast, I don't want the reflectors on. But more often than not, I'm going to use the reflectors because of where we live. So it's, even though the nice thing about a solar oven is you can put something in there and hardly ever, if at all, worry about it burning. And it can sit in there all day. So if you put it in there early in the day and you can set it in a place where, and at an angle where no matter what time of the day it is, it's going to get at least some of the sun. And then you can leave for the day and come back and your food should be done, generally speaking. Now here, because I'm kind of limited to only doing it on the deck and only have, so much area of sun because of especially the grapevines once they fill in. I have to move the solar oven around during the day because at certain parts of the day, then the place I had it where the sun was shining directly on it earlier in the day is now shaded by the porch, the patio umbrella, or the grapevines. And so then I have to keep moving it across the deck and then turning it to follow the sun. And so that's really important, especially if you live in a place or have a setup like we do where it's not going to get all day direct sun. So do I think purchasing a solar oven is worth it? I absolutely do. Um, it's just a matter of finding what's going to work for you or making your own. Like I said, I would actually suggest, because it's not like it requires any real skill to do, especially if you look at how it's done. You can make one without having to be a carpenter. Like I said, I loved the idea of taking an old picture frame with the glass still in it. That's your lid. You got the glass, you got the frame, couple of boxes, aluminum foil. You can use some stove black paint on the inside if you want, because it helps absorb more heat, or just use the aluminum foil, one of the two. And some newspaper for insulation. I keep saying one of these days I'm going to do that. The problem I have with that is here, sometimes you can look like, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day, I'm going to put something in the solar oven. And then you might walk away and forget about it, and then it starts pouring down rain. That I don't know how I feel about a cardboard box being left out there. At any rate, what I can say is that the American Sun oven is definitely heavier, even though I've never picked one up. I know it's heavier in weight. And one of the things I liked about the Solarvore better than than the Sun Oven, just by looking and comparing, is the shape of it. Where the Sun Oven it's more narrow and tall, where the one I have is more wide but shorter, which means I can stick a bigger, like an oval shaped casserole dish in there. Now, when it comes to the kind of dishes or pans you want to use in there, like I think the American Sun Oven comes with a couple of pans, and so did the Solarvore. You get two of the black enamelware pans. The nice thing about those when it comes to using a solar oven is because they're thinner than cast iron, and because they're black, they're going to heat the food up on just like that. They're going to heat the food up better, and it's going to cook better. Now, I did the other day when I baked a chicken in there, try something new because I've never done this before. I've always used those pans like that, the enamelware ones. You know what I mean? I know a lot of you know what I mean, but if you don't know what I mean, those are the kind that are typically either a dark, dark blue or a black, and they got like a white speckling on them. And they always come with a lid. You really want a lid on your pans when you're baking. And anyway, what I decided to try differently is that when I was baking the chicken, I have these really nice, I think it's Farberware, stainless steel pans or that I bought. They can be used as a pot, like more of a shallow, wide pot, or a baking pan. And they're about this big. I love them because they're stainless steel and they come with a glass lid. And I thought, I'm going to try baking in this to see how well it does. And I wasn't sure since the lid was glass. I mean, it's see-through and it's not black collecting the heat. But then I'm like, but then again, it's clear. So it's going to get the sun shining directly on that. And I can actually look through the solar oven and see into the pan and see how things going. And I don't have to keep opening it up, taking the reflectors off, opening the lid, opening the pan to see how my chicken or my roast is coming along. It worked great. I liked it way better than using the enamelware because of that. My throat is already itchy. Dang, hang on. I'm using my elderberry tincture to help with that. It does really help with the itching when that starts. I didn't think I did shoot 2 videos today, and I was talking to my sister, so I might have already wore my vocal cords out. Let me make sure I didn't get any elderberry tincture on my face because it'd be purple. Is it true that you can put a frozen chicken in and it's done by dinner? Tammy, that is all going to depend on the solar oven you're using and how much sun you're getting. I don't think it might on a good hot day, as long as we don't have any clouds here, that might work for us. Maybe. It seems like I stuck a partially frozen roast in my solar oven before and it was done by dinner, but it had to be a really nice day. It's American Sun. Oh, it's American Sun Oven, not All American Sun Oven. I'm thinking All American Canner. There's the All American Canner and then the American Sun Oven. Sorry. Thank you, Tammy. I'm always messing those up. American is taking a break from making them and selling the last of their inventory. I saw Doug and Stacy, and it was mentioned on their live. Okay. Well, there you go. I wonder if they're going to put them on sale. Yeah, I can share with you my story real quick. It's not a big deal. Let's see if I can even make it through the show. I can't believe my vocal cords are this itchy already. Some days I'm talking for almost 2 hours and they're not itchy. You just never know. Of course, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. No, they're not building more at all, or they're just taking a break for a time. But I guess with that said, I won't feel bad so bad about sharing my little story and why I was kind of irritated with them. And it's because when the original owners, the ones who got the company up and going, they sold out their company to somebody else, if I understand correctly. Well, before they did that, I think they had reached out to me or I had reached out to them because I really wanted to try their solar oven because I'd been hearing, I've heard Doug and Stacy talk about it. And I've heard, seems like there was somebody that had both, but they liked both for different reasons. Same one that I had, and then the American Sun oven. And I thought, well, it would be kind of nice to do the comparisons for myself. I wonder if they'd be willing to, send me a solar oven so I could try it out because that's what they do, like a lot of other places that do affiliates. And then I could do a review. And they agreed. They asked for my address so they could ship me out the sun oven, and it never came. Never came, never came, never came. And right about that same time, they were selling out, they were changing hands. And I kind of forgot about it for a little while and then decided to reach out to him again. It's like, I never received this. And then the people I was talking to were like, we don't know anything about that. I said, well, I was promised I was going to get this sun oven so I could do a review. And they claimed they looked through their accounts and didn't see anything about it, but I don't believe it. But whatever. Or maybe all of that information got deleted or lost when they changed hands. I don't know how that stuff works. I really don't. But it was really disappointing. But just like the garden stock, I also heard that the American Sun Oven was also one of those companies that if you didn't sell enough of their product as an affiliate, they would just delete your affiliate account. So maybe they changed their mind with me. I don't know, even though I hadn't had a chance to even review it. And I'm assuming that's what Garden Stock or Green Stock did to me. Garden Well is the name of the company. Green Stock is the name of their product. And that's why I kind of get the name sort of messed up there. But anyway, yeah. So I'm kind of wondering if that's why Greenstock deleted my affiliate account is because maybe I wasn't talking about them enough or selling enough product. I don't know. I mean, they never told me. Maybe if they told me, I would know. But so what is this? What is this part about? Not that I know of, or production is going way down. Let's see. Doug said they are only selling internationally. That doesn't make any sense. And if they're made in if they're still made in the US, that's interesting. You met who? You met Doug and Stacy, or you met the solar oven people, the sun oven people? I'm curious. We've never met Doug and Stacy in person, but we've talked to them on the phone off and on over the years, quite a number of times. In fact, Stacy, her and I used to get on the phone a lot more, but life just gets busy. I don't have time for being on the phone much. So anyway, that is quite interesting. So I don't know if I had any more to say about solar oven cooking, but regardless, it is easy. I love the fact that you can just stick your stuff in there and basically forget about it for the most part. With me, it's like I don't always hook because the type of solar oven I have, the reflectors, if you want them to stay in place, you got to actually hook them in. That's if the wind blows. And I don't always do that, especially if it's not a windy day. But then all of a sudden a wind gust will come up and you hear those reflectors fall into the deck. But it's not far. They don't break. I mean, it was totally fine. So I got to go back and fix it. So it is better in my case because of our situation that I hear, when I'm doing something in the solar oven. But I have left before and just set the solar oven in a place where it would get most of the sun during the time that we were gone, and it worked out okay that way. So anyway, so I didn't see whether or not Tammy Hill, if you were talking about meeting Doug and Stacy, or if you're talking about if you meant you were meeting the sun oven people being really nice. I'm curious simply because I already know Doug and Stacy are really nice. I'm curious about whoever's running the owns or did own or whatever the sun oven company. I think the previous owner, the original owner, was probably pretty nice, but at any rate, so I think that was pretty much all I had to say about the sun oven thing, or the solar oven. Oh, the sun oven people. Oh, that's interesting. Of course, it might have been those people. Who knows who I was interacting with on email? I have no idea. It was years ago, so I don't remember what the name was, but I know it was after they changed hands. So, next one I wanted to talk about was where am I? Somebody had asked, one question I get a lot is about okay, well, let me put it this way. I do talk about this a little bit on my Monday, this and that's coming out this next week, but people often ask me, what are the best herbs for this? What are the best herbs for that? What are the best herbs for that? Talking about specific ailments. And some of the things people bring up, it's like, I don't even know what that is. So I would have no idea. So you're going to have to do your own research. But, even those things that I know, like a couple of the most common ones I get asked, people will say, what are the best herbs for a urinary tract infection? And then another one is people will ask me, well, what are the best herbs for a specific kind of pain? So they'll say, what's the best herbs for sciatica pain? What's the best herbs for back pain? What's the best, pain killing herbs for dealing with gout or a bad knee? And the same thing applies like to the urinary tract infection. The key word in urinary UTI is infection. So what do you use for an infection? You use something that is an antibiotic or has antibiotic type properties to kill the infection. And so I kind of find it funny that people assume there's all these different that, usually when you go to the doctor, because you have some kind of infection, they just prescribe an antibiotic. Do you even know what type of antibiotic it is? Sometimes they just prescribe whatever they can make the most money off of prescribing, or they'll prescribe the type that's going to work better for you because there's a couple of different types and some people can't handle this kind, but they can handle that kind. Well, same goes with herbs, is that it's not so much about the infection, the type of infection, it's about you as a person and what's going to work best for you. Same thing goes with the pain. It's not so much about where the pain is that you're feeling, it's about the you and which herb's going to work best for you. And so I can't tell you that. I can't answer that question and say, oh, well, for you, since I've only ever seen your name on my YouTube channel, as you're asking the question, I suggest you try using this herb. I'm not going to know that. I'm not even a doctor anyway. All I can do is I can link you to the videos like I have in the description box down below, such as the video on natural antibiotics, where it's a list, or the video on natural pain relievers, natural remedies for pain and inflammation. And I can also share with you my different recipes for an antibiotic or a pain reliever. So the pain relief extract that I use, that I make out of feverfew, echinacea leaf, catmint, and valerian leaf. In most all that, I pretty much just use the leaves, though, you can throw in some flowers too if you want. And I find that works great for me. It doesn't matter if I have a headache. When I tore my knee, I used it for that. Two totally different types of pain, two totally different reasons for pain. I've used it for that. I've used it for other types of pain too. And in most cases, it works great. So the thing is, I know you guys that have been loyal followers have heard me say this only 50 billion times. Obviously, I'm using hyperbole, but it probably feels like that to some of you. But I have to keep saying it to either remind people or to let new people know that you can't assume that there's one perfect herb that's perfect for everybody. It should all be very much tailor made. I can only make recommendations, which is why, in the first place, I started making those lists of natural whatever, herbs to help with diabetes, high cholesterol, for skin health, for hair health, for menopause, for thyroid health, and so on. It's why I started putting together lists because as I started become more and more aware that just because feverfew works really great for me, or this or that works really, or nasturtium works really great for us as a natural antibiotic, it's not going to work for everyone. Or, like in the case of the nasturtium leaf, people who can't grow a garden, don't have a garden, or can't grow nasturtium, they don't have easy access to nasturtium leaf because it's not one of those things that you can just go to Frontier Co-op or Azure Standard or Anthony's Goods or any other herbal place and find dried nasturtium leaf to make an antibiotic extract. However, everybody has access easily to organic rosemary or thyme or ginger, most everybody. Okay. And a lot of people already grow rosemary and thyme and oregano, and these are all great antibiotics as well. Garlic. So I just want to remind everyone of that. And like I said, I do have some of those videos linked in the description box, though I didn't think to link to the full playlist on the natural remedies lists. So I have that all in a playlist. So you can scroll through there if you're looking for something specific. I've even done videos on things that like liver health, lung health, let's see, kidney health, I believe, natural healing for Lyme's disease, even though I have no experience in that at all. I simply did some research and started compiling that information together so people have at least a starting point. Because I know when you first start researching stuff for yourself and you're like, I don't even know how to start. I totally get it. And as I've shared before, that the reason I had an easier time getting into the research for health and herbs and so on is because I'd already had a lot of practice over the years of trying to figure out how to research other types of things. So when I would design the costumes for my dance shows, I know what I want, and I know that when it came to the leotard base, the leotard is the one piece. It could be a long sleeve, it could be sleeveless, it could be short sleeve. And I would prefer not to have to make those. I'd prefer to buy those because in that case, those would be a lot cheaper because of my dance teacher discount I could get if I could just buy those and then build the costume onto that, which is what most of the time I was doing. But sometimes I would have specific colors I was looking for and I couldn't find it. It could be really difficult to find. Like one time I was looking specifically for dark green, I think, leotards, tank style. And I learned that if I kept doing different types of word variations, if I kept trying, it took me days and I finally found some. I was thinking, man, I'm probably either going to have to buy some and try to dye them, even though it's nylon. Nylon doesn't dye great. Or I'm going to have to make them myself. But the same went with the material. Like, if I had it like, the year we did, dances around the world, we did that a couple years, and we did a traditional dance that was from Ghana, and so I was really looking up what's the traditional dress for Ghana, what are the kind of stuff they wore, and then tried to find those bright materials with the prints on them, and it took a lot of research, but I found some really beautiful fabrics. I still have them too. One of these days, I think I'll just make, since I don't do the shows anymore, I kept all the little sarongs and the head wrap things that I made because they're just, I have to keep stuff simple so that it can easily be adjusted to fit a student of any size. And but so in most cases they're just big rectangles and then smaller rectangles to use on the head. And then I'm thinking about taking some of those fabrics and making a cool quilt out of them at some point when time ever allows. Fire cider is typically used to cure or stave off illness, such as colds, flus, pretty much anything. Fire cider is typically made with, I haven't made it in years. I keep saying I'm going to make it, especially now that I have my own fresh horseradish straight from my garden. Um, but it's got all those kind of antibiotic and immune boosting goodies in them. And how different people make it is, it's all gonna be up to them, but usually your base ingredients are gonna be garlic, white onion, jalapeno, horseradish, and apple cider vinegar. And then some people will add in slices of lemon or orange peel or both, or ki red pepper flakes or just whatever. Anything that is gonna be a real good immune booster and cold and flu fighter. And then what most people do is after they've let that sit for a couple of weeks or so in the vinegar, because basically they're infusing the vinegar with all this good stuff, they'll strain it out. That's not how I did it. I took everything and blended it up to make sure I was getting all of it, and I'd eat it with a spoon. It was kind of like a just a thick, I don't really know how to describe it. I guess kind of like, no, it's more coarse than like a horseradish paste. But it's kinda like that, I just eat it by the spoonful. I just haven't made it in a long time. One of these days I'll remember. But, I haven't made it since before I started making my own vinegar and growing my own organic horseradish, because it was impossible to find organic, fresh horseradish anywhere around here, or just fresh horseradish, period. So growing my own was definitely the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know if that quilt will ever come to be. I think it would be a cool quilt, though. It'd be very brightly colored. If you ever see those ladies in Ghana, especially when they're making the shea butter, and I mean they're so beautiful. These beautiful women in these bright, beautiful attire. I love those pictures so much. I collected some for the video I did on the benefits of shea butter, and I mean they're they just look so amazing. And so, you imagine a quilt made out of all those bright colors and these cool prints, you know. Okay, sorry, I thought I had a message. And it wasn't exactly a message. Anyway, so what was I saying? Did I finish? Did I finish? I think I finished answering my question. The question. So a couple things. Oh, so one question I get a lot too is, can I use homemade vinegar for canning? Because people are really confused, because so many people are saying, no, you absolutely cannot use your homemade vinegar for canning because it's not acidic enough. Well, that's not necessarily true. Sometimes it's not, but if you are making sure your vinegar has enough sugar so it's more acidic, letting it um fully finish into becoming vinegar and not stopping the process when it's only halfway there. And then you test it with some test strips to see what the pH is. And you know that you're getting a pH, especially if it's a pH of 2.5 to 3, that then I got a bug in my face. Die. Oh, I hate those things. Those little tiny little gnats. Anyway, What was I saying? But yeah, you get your pH strip, you check for that pH of 2.5 to 3, then you're going to have at least a 5% acidity. What kind of when you go buy vinegar at the store, what acidity are you typically looking for that you're using when you go to pickle things? It's usually 5%. That's all you got to do is just figure out basically what your acidity is. And you know what? If you feel like maybe it's a little low, a little weak, add more. That's how I look at it. I think sometimes it kind of comes down, it's sort of like the whole, I think it's not just canning Nazis, you got food preservation Nazis that cover the whole gamut of everything. And I found this channel and I was going to try to remember the name of it. I should have wrote it down. We just stumbled across this channel. It's really cool. It's called Medieval something. And it has all these different videos. There's so many more I want to watch because we just found it about what they did in medieval time, the peasants, what they did to preserve food, what they did to stay warm, all these different things. And they're so interesting. And they talked about, like I just watched one, it's like one of their newest videos where they talked about the salt curing, like I just mentioned in that video that published yesterday. And it talks about how they would salt cure fish and other types of meat, and the drying, just using the sun and the air to dry meat. They even showed some of the similar pictures of the fish. They'd like open the fish up, cut the heads off and then hang them to dry, especially in the Nordic countries. And that's how they preserve their meats. And anyway, it also covered the vinegar and the fermenting and some of that stuff. And there wasn't all this big. They didn't have pH strips. They didn't have all this stuff to perfectly get to know exactly what that vinegar was. They just did it. They just did this stuff. They didn't even understand all the science behind it. They just knew it worked. And so that's why I think that there's, people who say the only proper way to dry meat and preserve it for a long time is to freeze dry it. Wrong. You can do that. But what about people that have been drying meat for thousands of years? To get them through hard times, or just even to just get them through the winter, or through the times of the year where meat wasn't easily available. So, I'm not saying we shouldn't be careful and that we shouldn't follow some basic guidelines. Yes, Rita, Medieval Times Discovered. I think that is the name of it. Usually the thumbnail pictures look like they're kind of like paintings. I think most of them do. So if they look like that, and like I said, one of the most recent videos, I think it just published yesterday or a few days ago, was the one on food preservation. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the right one. Very interesting stuff in there. It's like, there you go. Some of the stuff they were saying is some of the same stuff I've been preaching at people about. And I'm like, I've just been validated. It was pretty cool. So yeah, I highly recommend that. And thank you guys for looking that up. And thank you, Deb, for finding that link. So I have never tried lutefisk. I know a lady here that she's a Norwegian descent, and she said she never could stand that stuff. I mean, she was raised in a home where she said she hated it. But so anyway, yeah, as long as you got a pH of at least 2.5 to 3.5, it should be good for canning. And like I said, or, for pickling. And like I said, just increase the vinegar to water ratio if you're concerned. Let's see, something else here. I might have to get to that I might do that as a separate video. We'll see. But even though I talk about this in Mondays, this and that, I want to show you guys. So yesterday, my Superb lids. I knew the Superb company was gonna be sending me a bunch of lids. I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. Thanks." I didn't know how many lids they were gonna send me. They sent me 2 big, massive sleeves of lids like this big for wide and regular, plus several boxes of more lids. But not just that, they sent me a case of wide mouth quart jars and a case of regular mouth pint jars, canning jars. They're just very simple. They don't have all the fancy schmancy stuff on them, but they're 100% made in the USA. I didn't expect them. Like, what are all these boxes? I had 3 boxes coming from them, and I was just like, what? It really kind of threw me for a loop. So, and then of course the jars all have their own lid on them. So everything about these jars and their lids are made in the US. Now, sadly, I can't see the same about the Azure Standard jars. Now, though the Azure Standard jars, if you get them with lids, they do put the US made Superb lids on them. But the jars themselves, and they're clearly labeled, they let you know they are made in China. And like I said in the video that we'll publish on Monday, my guess is that unlike Superb that already had these kind of factories in place, this is why it was easy enough for them to convert everything to get it to where they can start producing the lids and now the jars. They like Azure Standard doesn't have that kind of factory. And my hope is that eventually they'd be able to get a factory put, you know, in the United States, but at least they're being honest about the fact that they are made in China as it is clearly labeled. And you'll even find it if you go to their website, you're looking at the jars, and it'll say country of origin, and it tells you that the jars come from China. I love the looks of them, of the Azure Standard jars, but it's like, yeah, I have plenty of jars, and now I have even more jars. But I have so many jars, I just have no need to buy anymore. But I do hope that Azure Standard will eventually be able to move their production to the United States. But they haven't made any promises like 4 jars did, but they also haven't, and that's for the sake of the people who actually call and say, "Hey, where are your jars made? Or your lids made? I can't find any information." Well, they will tell you then, but they'll say, "Oh, but we're gonna be moving our factory to the United States." Well, they've been saying that for years. How long does it take? But anyway, so I missed the first 20 minutes. Had to go outside. Are the jars comparably priced? I don't know. I haven't looked to see what the price is on the jars. I'm sorry. I should have thought to look, but my Superb link is in the description. I think it's in there. I didn't double check to make sure it was in there, and you'd be able to find it. So just so you know that now that I'm an affiliate with Superb, the lids and the jars that I didn't think to mention in last week's video, you get 20% off your order. It doesn't matter if you're ordering lids or jars or both. So 20% off by going through my link. I love that. It still just blows me away that they offer such a good percentage, because most affiliates, it's 10 to 15% tops. It's rare that you'll have one that will go 20 to 25%. Now, Shepherd's Crook does give you 25% off your first order of their coffee. Now, I have this sitting here because, well, I just got my recent order of Shepherd's Crook. I got the Ethiopian because I tried a small bag of that. Really like it. And this is a new one. They're Mexican. Also very good. I needed to try some new flavors. I was glad they had a new one, because right now, my other 2 favorites which are the Honduras and especially the Colombian, they can't get it right now. And right now, the cost of coffee, for them to get it is very high. So their prices have gone up, but I'm still happy to pay them because I know that's not their fault. They're not just raising the cost to try to make more money. They're raising the cost because they would lose money if they didn't, because it's costing them more. And hopefully they'll be able to get the Colombian back in again, because that one is my absolute favorite. But I do really like the Ethiopian and the Mexican. And I still haven't tried the Herdsman. I was thinking I had, but they sent me this for, just as a gift. And they actually sent me one of those in my last, and I haven't tried it because I'm like, oh, isn't that, I'm assuming it's the same as their espresso blend, which they're no longer carrying. I thought maybe they just changed the name. But now I'm wondering if it's a little bit different. So I got to try this one next and see what I think. But yeah, so Shepherd's Crook, they give a 25% discount, but that's only off your first order when you go through my link. And well, it's not my link. I don't have a specific link because I'm not an affiliate. But if you use the coupon code RAIN, is it RAIN 25? I think it's RAIN 25 for that. And then for the jars, you shouldn't have to use the coupon code. The link should just give you that 20% off right away, and the lids. But you can still put in the coupon code. That one's Rain Country 20. So yeah. Anyway. But yeah, a lot of people have been ordering. I really appreciate that. The jars, or the jars and lids. And I'm like, wow. I mean, even the smallest order somebody placed it was a little small order. It still made me more money. My little 10% discount, which was I only made like 48 cents on that one. That was still more money than what I make on Rumble each day. Though I might have it because Rumble has dropped. It's even lower now than it was. And so is YouTube. Everything's dropped again. And you know what gets me is May. I've been doing this. I'm in my 9th year of doing YouTube, and May is usually the banner month, or one of the 2 banner months of the year is May. And yet I'm making even less money now. I'm at the lowest rate on both platforms than I have been in many years on YouTube, and probably for quite a while on Rumble. It's kind of sad. I don't know what's going on because it's happening on Rumble too. It's not just YouTube. But I do think the reasons are different. I think with Rumble, it has to do with the number of actual viewers you get over there, but also because they don't have the same kind of advertisers. And I don't know that I know you don't have the option to at least I don't think, deselect mid-roll ads over there, but I don't think they have mid-roll ads. And here's another thought that hit me too, is I wonder if if some channels, well, no, I know that's not true either. Because I know there's channels that put ads all through their videos and they're still seeing a drop on YouTube. I don't put ads in the middle of my videos. So I kind of think that's one of the reasons why they don't promote me as much. Because I'm not going to make them as much money off my videos as those people that have, mid-roll ads every 2 seconds. So who knows? Okay, what I miss? The last names all start with H. Oh, yeah, I did notice that. Because I'm always like, okay, wait, who is it? And then I find myself having to associate you guys more with your well, Tammy Hill's the only one that's got a picture. You other two just have the letter, but at least you have different colors. I know you don't get to choose your color though. I don't think. But Tammy Hill, I always just look for her little avatar picture there. See, I was named from the old Doris Day movie, Tammy. I remember seeing that movie when I was a teenager. All right, let me see. Oh, so we've only been on here an hour. Maybe there's something else I can cover. I didn't have a lot of stuff in here, but I'm kind of thinking this one might take me a while. Oh, I'll talk about it. I haven't been on here for an hour, even if I do it as a separate standalone video. But this is the one that it's the question that no one's asked me, but it was something that kind of occurred to me this morning. Was it this morning or yesterday? Well, this morning I went out early and was transplanting some of my sunflowers. So I find it best here to start my sunflowers in the greenhouse to give them a head start. And then I'll transplant them outside. But you don't want to transplant young, seedlings from a green or, out in anywhere in the middle of the day on the hottest part of the day. You don't want to do that. And yesterday was pretty warm. So I'm like, darn, I missed my chance. So I went out early this morning, just when it was just bright enough for me to do so. I went out there and took my yellows, because those ones came in first. Well, there's a story behind that too, but it was because my red ones, when they first started coming up, something ate them, but didn't eat the yellow ones. I'm like, weird. So I had to replant the red ones, the chocolate cherry ones. And they're not quite ready to move out yet, but the yellow ones, They were like this tall. I'm like, I got to get them out of this pot. So I wanted to do that early this morning, and I got to thinking about why I grow sunflowers. Now, you would assume that people excuse me, that people all grow sunflowers either A, because they're pretty, or B, because they want the sunflower seeds. Well, that's two of the reasons why I grow sunflowers. But I don't grow the sunflowers for the seeds for the sake of me collecting and roasting. Though maybe someday I'll do that, but for what I can get, like especially black oil sunflower seeds, for the price I can get those for my chickens, or even pre-roasted salted organic sunflower seeds from Azure Standard. It's not really worth it to me to use up all of my gardening space just for that. So, why do I grow sunflowers? Well, one is I do love the pop of color they add to the garden. The sunflowers have that added benefit of being growing tall and catching the attention of your honeybees. And then that draws them into the garden. Then they find the borage and the echinacea. And if I've got anise hyssop growing, which is always a touch and go thing with anise hyssop for some reason, and the lamb's ear, the woolly lamb's ear, and the comfrey, and they're all over everything. So you're drawing the bees in, and then they're getting to your squash flowers and pollinating your pumpkins and your cucumbers and your whatnots. So you've got that benefit with the sunflowers of catching the attention of the bees because they're tall and they're bright. And then for me, I like what I like to do with the seeds is I do save the seeds. I do take the seeds off of them, and I use them for two things. I don't roast them, I don't eat them. Because I have a lot of, the Azure Standard organic roasted salted sunflower seeds stored up. But I do feed a bunch of them to the chickens and save a bunch to turn around and sell. So that is some of the seeds that I sell. I haven't been selling the chocolate cherry ones, but I have a few left that I might add to the list. I need to see how much I actually have, and then maybe I'll get those added to the list. But if I don't do that before fall, I'll definitely do it after fall when I know that I've got plenty more because they're beautiful. They're this deep burgundy color. I had a few years back, I tried a different, I forgot what it was called. It was also supposed to be a deep red, but it was still beautiful, but it wasn't that deep burgundy red like the chocolate cherry ones. Those, love the color. And I know it's just because different conditions, different soil conditions and areas can cause your sunflowers or other types of flowers to change in color. So it could be that that other one, whatever the name of it was, I cannot remember. It was Velvet Queen. That's what it was called. Again, still beautiful, but it was more of an orangey red, very autumn looking. And I'm guessing it could just be my soil, and that's fine. I mean, because you'll see this, like hydrangeas, especially, are ones that are very susceptible to having different colored flowers according to the soil. So the flowers are typically going to be blue or pink. It can be the same plant, but it's all depending on what's in the soil. And I don't remember which way it is. Like if it's more acidic, it's one color. If it's less acidic, it's the other color. So you can get a hydrangea and get a blue one and have it turn pink and vice versa after it's been planted for a year. Okay, people are laughing and I'm missing it. Does your neighbor free range her chickens? Mine does. Let's see. What did I miss? Oh, yeah, Tammy's in the Deb, same. That's all I remember. Isn't it the same one too, where she had the necklace and it kept falling through, and then when it finally got caught in her bosom, she's like, "Oh, I'm finally a woman fully growed." Is that the same one? Or am I wrong? Am I getting it all mixed up with a totally different movie? I don't know. Maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. I was thinking that was that one. But okay, somebody was talking about the birds I get with here's the here's the frustrating thing about the sunflowers is I do have to cut them as soon as the stellar jays start coming around. And because they will eat every seed out of the flower. So I got to watch them. So once the flower head starts drooping, it's fully open and full, and then it starts to droop, it's time to cut it. If you don't do it, then your blue jays, your stellar jays, or whatever jays, other birds will come eat all the seeds out of your flower. It's so irritating. And one year, it was one of those crazy years, and I kept forgetting to go out there and cut my sunflowers. And the stellar jays, I don't know if you know what a stellar jay is. Around here, a lot of people call them blue jays. I still do because they're blue and they're the one with the little, like the cardinals have the little point at the top of their head. They're beautiful birds, but they're so flippin' annoying, those things, and they're mean. So they're called a stellar jay. And that one year, they ate all of the seeds out of my sunflowers. Then those little jerks had the nerve to come up to my sliding glass door and sit on we have a little stand thing there that we put the firewood in. And it's sitting right next to the sliding glass door. So it was sitting on there and it was knocking on the glass door like, "Hey, you're out of sunflower seeds, woman. Get out here and get me some more sunflower seeds." I'm like, "Get out of here, jerk." Irritating. It's a funny story though. It makes me laugh. So yeah. Anyway, I do think I covered. Oh no, there's one more thing I want to say, and I forgot to say it when I was shooting the this and that earlier today. So I'll have to remember to say it in the next this and that. I haven't done a subscriber photo collaboration in forever. And so I'm like, oh, I got to get back into those. And so I want to do, they're not going to be super close together, but I have two that I want to do again. They're basically repeats, but they'll be for 2025. One of them, and I did do like one on, dehydrated foods and one on canned foods and one on fermented foods. But this time I'm going to combine it all together and have one on just home preserved food. So it can be any form. Even if it's salt cured or what's that? Always confit. I mean, confit. Maybe it's pronounced confit. Maybe it's French. I don't know. Anyway, where the meat with the fat, preserved in the fat. Anything like that. Doesn't matter. As long as it's some home preserved food, take a really nice photo. And it can be, I usually use up to 3 photos per person. Now, if you send me more photos, that's fine. That gives me more to choose from. And I'll pick the ones I think will look best. And then, the ones that have the best color, the best clarity, and, a nice, decent looking background. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just that sometimes people will take pictures with a lot of stuff in the background, like too much stuff. And then it looks busy and it's hard to know what your eye is supposed to be focusing on. So, yeah, nice, good, clean photos. And, you can send me 5 or 6, but just know that I'm most likely only going to choose 3. You can just send me 1. It doesn't matter. And so what I do, if you're new to this and you've never seen any of my photo collaboration videos, is that they're the ones that take the longest to put together actually, but they're still fun. So I'll put your picture, I'll have music through the whole thing, and you'll have a picture. It'll be like a slideshow. And then next to your picture or in the picture, depending on if the photo is horizontal or vertical, then I'll put your name, whatever name you want me to add. It doesn't have to be your full name. It could just be, your first name with a last initial. It can be if you have a channel or a blog site, it can be that name instead. Or if, even if you don't have a channel, but you have, a you have a handle for your YouTube, it can be that. Whatever you want it to be. Just make sure that you make that clear so I know. Or you can be anonymous. And it's really a fun thing to do because then I can put these collaboration photos together and it's just like, it's like this community thing and it's fun and it inspires other people as well. So it's not just me, it's other people showing what they do. And then the other one will be the garden collaboration. So it'll be taking really nice photos and different photos of your gardens as they're coming along. So that one I'll probably do the food preservation one first and then the garden one. Since gardens can just kind of keep going and going and going. Of course, then again, you're preserving the foods from your garden. But I want them to be at least a month apart either way. But even then I probably still wouldn't get it, all put together until closer to winter. So either way, and you can send me photos for both, but this is important, people. If you've got photos you want to put into both, they have to be sent in separate emails. So you're going to send it to raincountryhomestead@gmail.com. And so you'll have one for garden collaboration and the other ones would go in the food preservation collaboration. So don't send them together in the same email because that makes it much harder on me. And it's very because I have to go, which folder am I going to put this in? And then I have to remember that then when I go to work on the next one, whichever one that is, that I take that and that I get that email with the photos because it might not happen. So I have a system. I have a way that I do things since it is it's very, very time consuming putting those together because there's a lot involved because I got to download the photos. I got to name the photos so I know who they belong to and so on and so on and so on. And it takes a while. And then I got to put them in the editor. And then, is so much involved. There's so many layers too in the video itself. But it's still a lot of fun. And I realized man, I haven't done those in a long time. I really want to do those again. I think they're just a great way for everybody to be involved, for all the Rainiacs to put in their 2 cents besides just in comments, but then people can actually see. They can actually see what you're doing, because you can't add like on Facebook, you can put photos in your comments when you're replying to stuff, but you can't do that on YouTube. So you can't share your photos. I think that's what gave me the idea is people would go, oh, I wish I could post a photo to something I just did. And they'll say that in comments. I'm like, yeah, YouTube doesn't have that enabled. I keep hoping someday that they will, but there might be a reason why they don't. But anyway, because that would be fun. But since they don't, hey, I can make a video and I can put all your photos in one video and then I can credit your name if you want me to. Not everybody wants their name included or their full name included. A lot of people just do like their first name and last initial. Some people just do their, whatever their YouTube handle or blog handle is. And that's cool too. Totally fine with me. So yeah, now I think that was it. So yeah. It's actually getting kind of nice out there. No, I'm looking over there and I see some really dark clouds. It started out really icky this morning. It was kind of rainy. You hear my chicks? Chicken birds! I gave them some eggs today. They're still trying to figure out what the heck that is I threw in there. But once they figure it out, they'll get to the point when I start coming in. Because that's what I do with the chicks is, once they get a few days old, at least I'll start feeding them scrambled eggs, because it's so good for them. And once they figure that out, they'll start pecking at that plexiglass front that we put on that box. Because they know I'm coming in with them eggs. They're growing so fast. This is what amazes me about chicks is it's not necessarily that you see them getting bigger. They are. But what strikes me the most, what stands out the most, is how fast their wing feathers start coming in. It's like you can't even see their feathers when they're first born because 'cause they're just teeny tiny little things or, when they first hatch. But then in just like a couple of days, you're seeing feathers. And now it's gonna be any day where they're gonna be able to start flying out of that box unless I cover it up, because they'll hop up on top of their heat plate. But once they get to that size, since there's 10 of them in that little box, and I never meant to have that many chicks in there at a time. Um, I mean, they've got plenty of room now, but as fast as they're growing, they're gonna be out of room soon. But thankfully, we have that much larger brooder, that more you saw made from wood with the screen in front of it that's in the chicken coop so that all the chickens can kind of interact and get used to seeing each other. And then they have a lot more room to grow in there. And then when they get big enough, I'll start letting them into the little caged in outside area. And yeah, so I got my system down now. So this is working pretty good. The only thing I'm concerned about is how many roosters are going to be in this and how noisy it's going to be in my backyard for a while. I hope my neighbors just don't totally disown me. I think they'll be good, but I remember last year, you guys remember last year? I had 3 roosters at one time because I had Antonio, and then I had the 2 cockerels, and they had both started crowing, and I'm out there trying to shoot a video, and all 3 of them. And then it finally got to the point where when Antonio's crowing a lot, then, Cody will start to howl. So I'm like, okay, so I've got 3 roosters and a dog. Everybody's making noise, and all I'm trying to do is shoot a video. And they were doing it just because I was standing out there talking. Because 'cause they'd come right up to the deck where I'm standing. There's one and another one, because they all sound a little different, and then, Antonio, and then dog, So I did that little compilation short with all the little, and that was only just a few of them. I think those are the ones I took out of the video, but I left some in the video because it's funny. It's real life, you know? It's real life. In fact, I'm halfway, well, better than halfway through editing my this and that for Monday because I just shot that this morning. And I can hear Antonio. I mean, I know you guys have been hearing him, but in this video, he sounds especially loud. It's like, where was he? I mean, I got the whole deck. He had to been standing right next to the deck, close to the sliding glass door, which was shut. And it's still loud. You can still hear him very loud. And so as I'm editing this and I'm hearing Antonio in the video crowing, he's he's right out front in the little section. I still have this small little section that they're allowed to be in the front yard while things are growing. If you look at the videos or excuse me, the photos I posted of the front yard garden section the other day, a couple of those photos you can see in the background, you can see chickens right up against the house. That's their little front yard area. That's all they get until fall, and then they're allowed in that whole fenced in area. But anyway, he he was out there this morning crowing as I'm editing that video, so he's as close to me as he could be because right behind this wall is actually more like right over there is where I'm sitting and editing videos, and then he'd be just like straight back right there. And it was like, wait, which one is the live rooster and which one's the one in the video? It was funny. See, I watched your video this morning on herbs, and my rat terrier Moose was watching their dog. They look a lot alike. Moose. Yeah, Cody is half rat terrier. He's a rat terrier, him and his sister both. You'll see her in some videos. I can't remember. I haven't gone back and watched today's video yet. I can't remember if I put I think there's a clip in there of Cody and Luna, his sister, who's much bigger than him, down in the creek at our other piece of property. They just love it down there. But yeah, they're from the same litter. So she was the big one and he was the runt. And so there's this massive difference in size. But yeah, rat terrier dachshund is what they are. I think mom was the dachshund and dad's the rat terrier. Let's see. We don't mind hearing the dogs and the chickens in the background. I appreciate that. Um, Yeah, sometimes I'm just like, I think it's because when I first started my channel, and a lot of times Luna's here, and Luna and Cody would be outside. I'd be in the kitchen shooting videos, and they would be outside barking at somebody or something, and people would be like, "I just heard a dog barking. I'm out of here." And it's like, "Oh, is that what you do when you go over to your friends and family's house and their dog barks? You just say, 'I'm out of here.'" Well, fine. Take your toys and leave the sandbox, please. Man. Now, see, cows, that would be a nice sound. It's a nice mellow sound. Nice low mellow sound. Autocorrect is always fun, Rita. What are you talking about? It's always fun. Oh, I was just thinking of something else. Oh, shoot. What was I thinking of? Was it in relation to the cow comment? I don't remember. I don't remember. But at any rate, yeah, it's real life. It's real life. I mean, if you can't hear a little background noise every now and then, people say they have chickens, they say they have dogs, or they say they have this or that, and you never hear anything. I think I'd start being suspicious. Do you really have chickens? Hmm? Do you really have dogs? Do you really have grandbabies? Which I don't shoot videos mostly when grandbabies are here. I've done it a couple times, like that one I did a couple years ago when Jace was still just a little tiny guy. And I had to watch him that day, but I had videos to shoot. I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and try it. And that's the day he decided he was still kind of in a carrier. And so I was shooting the video in here and I just had him on the floor. He was right at my feet so he could watch me. And he was giggling the whole time, "Ee!" and squealing. That was another one where I left some of it in, but then also made a outtake of some of the best parts and made a short out of it. And it's one of my favorite videos. People just love that. It was really cute because he kept wanting to interject. "Wow." It's real life. Man, it's like because I'm shooting a video, my whole life is supposed to be put on hold. This isn't a fancy schmancy Hollywood studio. Excuse me. I'm just a person in my home shooting videos, and I welcomed you into my home with my dogs and my chickens and my grandbabies. Get over it. So, what do we have here? I do not miss the Blue Jays I had in Washington. They were probably the Stellar Jays, Tammy. Probably the same ones. Um, I don't know that we have actual Blue Jays here. Blue Jays don't have the little, because I always thought these were Blue Jays for a long time till I was corrected on it. And I had to look it up and I'm like, well, what's a Blue Jay look like? And I realized they look very different. In fact, the Stellar Jay to me has a lot more blue than the Blue Jay. And they just look very different. The time we had a rat terrier, we passed, but we had him with us. And this adorable little girl kept saying, "Cow." Oh, how? Her mom was like dog and she was what? Oh, saying cow? Wait. Am I reading that wrong? Or is it dog on autocorrect? Oh, the girl kept saying cow. Her mom was like dog. And she said, no, cow. Oh, okay. Get it now, Tammy. Sorry. I was like, here I am again trying to read something and I'm just confusing myself. Herd sunflower prevents other things from growing. Something with the soil. I haven't had any issues. I grow my sunflowers out there with the corn. They both get tall. I'll grow beans around beans grow better for me around sunflowers than they do around corn because the sunflowers get taller and stockier and they're usually much farther ahead of the corn. The corn takes a lot longer to grow that tall. And I know I've shared some pictures in the past of the beans growing around the sunflowers. I love it so much because it's like I'm growing the sunset and scarlet runner beans, and so you got the color of those, and then you got the bright yellow or red of the sunflowers. It's so beautiful, and then usually the marshmallow is right in there too, blooming. Yeah, I haven't had any issues. I've had I've read somewhere that you should never grow beans and onions next to each other, but I've done it before I knew better, before I'd ever seen that. I'm like, "Oh, really?" Because some of the biggest green onions, because you buy some green onions, you use up the green part, you stick the white part in the ground, and it will just keep growing and giving you green onions all season long. And I would just kept looking for spaces to plant them. And so I planted them. We had a peach tree in a pot, a little young peach tree. And around that I had planted beans so the beans could go up the peach tree, which was really cool. And then I had some space in there. I'm like, oh, here's some places I can stick some green onions. And those green onions grew bigger than any other green onions I've grown. Bigger, healthier, better. And the beans did great too. So this whole thing about you should never grow beans and onions next to each other, I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's certain varieties, but I haven't had any issues. What I did find though, so this year I'm not growing cucumbers. I mean, there are certain things you got to be careful about growing, even just in the same general area. So I grow my pumpkins in a covered area in the backyard. And then I have my separate greenhouse, which is where I typically grow my cucumbers. Well, the cucumbers will flower before the pumpkins. And um so they'll start getting the fruit in long before the pumpkins do. And it was 2023 and the cucumbers were great. They were great. They were great until the pumpkins started to flower. Then all of a sudden the cucumbers that came in were nasty. They were bitter. They were orange and they were shaped weird and they were bitter. And it took me a while to figure out what was going on. And it was that even though they were in different areas, in different sections of the garden, the bees were coming from the pumpkin patch, coming into the greenhouse, and then pollinating the cucumbers, and they were cross-pollinating. And the cucumbers from that point on, we couldn't eat them because when they're bitter like that, you shouldn't eat them. Not only do they taste terrible, you don't want to eat them because that bitterness, it's not going to kill you, a little bit of it, but that can be toxic. You don't want. They taste terrible anyway. You wouldn't want to eat them anyway. And I'm like, I was going to save seeds from those cucumbers until that happened. I'm like, I can't save seeds from any of these this year. So this year, what I'm doing is Patrick's like, are you growing cucumbers this year? And I'm like, not this year. What I'm going to do this year is I'm just going to grow as much pumpkin as I possibly can. I mean, I still actually have a lot of dehydrated pumpkin put up, but I want to keep it that way. So I want to put up a lot more pumpkin this year and then next year focus on growing cucumbers instead of growing them both, because even in separate sections, they still got cross-pollinated. It was terrible. I mean, like I said, you can still use the cucumbers as long as you're picking them before your pumpkin starts to flower. But I just don't want to mess with that. So I'll do pumpkins this year and then cucumbers next year. Do it that way. And then I think butternut squash and pumpkin also cross-pollinate. And I love butternut squash. And I keep wanting to try to grow it again. I've grown it before and it did okay. But I can't grow them at the same time. I don't really want those two cross-pollinating either. They would probably be more fine though than the cucumber and the pumpkin cross-pollinating. So yeah, I mean there are certain things you have to be careful, and you got to really, really, corn. You don't want different varieties of corn growing too close together. And I think I'm still trying to research this out because we do have a small area, and I have a lot of stuff that grows right along with each other and does great. But there is that scripture where God was telling his people not to sow their field with diverse or mingled seed, is what it says in the King James, with mingled seed. And I've been wondering for a long time specifically what that means. Now, some people will say, well, that means you can only have a patch of this and a patch of that and a patch of that. You can't grow your corn around your beans and so on. And I having a really hard time believing that's what it means. And it could be that, and it's not just because it's like, well, I got to do what I got to do and I'm trying to make excuses. I just think there's more to it than that. I think it's very specific. Though it doesn't say, but it does say sow your field. So out in the field, what do you usually have? You usually are growing your wheat and your barley, but you're not going to grow them in the same field together. You're not going to mix those seed together. And you certainly aren't going to sow tares and wheat in the same field. And so I think part of it is a spiritual meaning, because later on, they're talking about, Jesus is talking about, harvest they got to don't pull the tares up. You're going to pull the wheat up too. Wait until they're all mature. You harvest the tares first, and then they get thrown in the fire. Then you go back and harvest the wheat. So I think there is a lot of it that is spiritual significance, but I think this is so far what I think. I'm still trying to do a little studying on it because I do want to understand it better. I do think it is most specific to growing grains in the field. And you know, you don't want to mix your wheat and your barley and your tares and so on. Again, this is just what I'm thinking. Other than that scripture reference on the wheat and the tares, I don't have anything else to back it up yet. I'm still working on it because I do honestly want to understand it. But for now, I'm still doing what works. Like one thing I'll do is thankfully I got amaranth growing again this year. Last time I tried to plant amaranth, it all died on me. I don't know why. And I was afraid I was out of seed, and I found some old seed. And I'm like, man, I hope this stuff plants, because I didn't think I had any more seed, because I think I sold all the rest of my other seed. I found some old seed. And what I do with the amaranth is I just plant it in a pot somewhere on the deck, give it a chance to grow and get to a certain size. And by the time it gets big enough for me to plant in the garden, just in the ground, by then my potatoes are done. So we get all the potatoes out, and then I plant amaranth in there. And I do that for two reasons. One is, okay, now I can make more use of this space that I had the potatoes in, because I can't do a second potato planting. I've tried it. We just don't have a long enough season for that to work. But I can transplant the amaranth in there where the potatoes were, and then I can grow the amaranth. I get the beautiful greens. I get the flowers. I get that beautiful color because I grow the red, the love lies. Is it called love lies bleeding? Is that what it's called? The red one, amaranth. And collect the seeds. I have the seeds to sell. I can use the seeds for grain, and then save some seeds for planting next year. You got the greens that they got a nice mild flavor. They're great in salads. You can stir fry them. You can use them for all kinds of things. But then what's happening now too is the amaranth also re-nourishes the soil after getting those potatoes out of there. I think it's a great system that I came up with. I mean, it's not a new idea. It's just that was my idea with the potatoes and the amaranth. Somebody else might do something different or use a cover crop like hairy vetch or something like that, some kind of legume. But I use the amaranth. So, and it's just so pretty too. It just looks so cool. I mean, I'll get sometimes those long ropey flowers. They'll be like, let's see if I can get it in the image. That long, at least. I know I've got little video clips where I grab the top of a flower and I just keep doing this, and it just keeps going through my hand and going through my hand. Let's see. My sister-in-law grew zucchini and honeydew close together. She called what grew zucchini dews. You couldn't eat them. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because, there's certain squash and melons that, they're so closely related. You have to be careful. Zuki doos. That's cute. But it sounds like it's not something you'd want. Now, I had a couple of different squash that, cross-pollinated. I think it was my pumpkin and my zucchini that cross-pollinated just because of the way that the zucchini turned out. I loved them. Those were good. The zucchini were all like this, and, instead of being longer, they were short and fat, and they were striped, and it wasn't supposed to be the striped zucchini like the Italian one, the striata whatever. It was supposed to be a black beauty, but they were short and fat, a little lighter in color with the stripes, and when you cut them open, the flesh was a very light orange, peachy color. They had a really nice flavor. I loved those. Now those were good. So sometimes you can get a good cross pollination and end up with something good, but a lot of times you're going to end up with something really nasty. Now I had a pumpkin and a spaghetti squash cross pollinate. It was terrible. I mean, it looked like a pumpkin on the outside. It was beautiful. You cut it open and it was all stringy like spaghetti squash, but it didn't taste like either pumpkin or spaghetti squash. It just tasted like yuck, like Play-Doh. If you guys remember what that tasted like, if you were a weird kid like me and, of course, had to eat some to see what it tasted like. Seemed like it tasted like the way it smelled, at least. I mean, most kids do that, right? I was the weird kid that for a short period of time, I used to like to eat chalk. And it wasn't the flavor of the chalk. It wasn't I just like, it wasn't like that. I like to take the pieces of chalk and just nibble this way because I like the way it felt on my teeth. Kids are weird. I was weird. I was a weird kid. I used to never tell people stuff like that because I'm like, people are going to think I'm weird. And I'm like, well, you are weird. But then again, all kids are weird. We all do weird things. I didn't do that for long, but my dad used to be a pastor of a church, and he'd take me down to the church in midweek, and I'd go hide behind the chalkboards and nibble on the chalk. Weird. I don't do that anymore. I promise. I ate frosted box cat food. Frosted? Frosted boxed cat food? What is frosted? I used to eat the milk bones, the dog bones. I used to eat those. Artistic kids like the paintbrush. I resemble that. The cat food was frosted. Really? Mom said they caught me in the coal bin when I was little. Oh, there was another dog food I used to eat. We had when I was real little, like Frosted Flakes. Um, they had a farm, and I loved going out there. So they had the cows and they had ponies and then the chickens and the ducks and they had a garden and they had everything. And so I loved it there. I was only like 5 or 6 years old. And by their back door, of course, they had dogs. They had big dogs. They had a massive bag of Blue Mountain dog food. And for some reason, I thought that stuff was really tasty. And I'd sneak a handful of it and run outside. Blue Mountain dog food. I don't know if they still make that. It was probably healthier than a lot of the junk food they sell in for people these days. Probably a lot more vitamins and minerals and fiber. Yeah, I've never seen frosted cat food either. That's funny. Of course, I haven't had a cat since. Well, we did have a cat that we started feeding years ago. That I kept chasing off. I thought it belonged to somebody else, and then I realized this cat. Somebody must have dumped this. Somebody must have owned this cat and then decided they didn't want it anymore and dumped it off in the neighborhood. And when I started being nice to it, it was like starving for attention. Not just starving for food, it was starving for attention, and it just couldn't be pet enough, that poor cat. So I took pity on it, and we started feeding it. But that was at least a good 20 years ago. And I don't remember what cat food I was buying, but I started buying cat food for it. But I just don't understand people that would do that. It was just like, oh, I'm just gonna go dump that. And that happened twice where we ended up with a cat that just got dumped into our neighborhood, and clearly you could tell somebody had owned it before. It wasn't, feral. And the first one I ended up, once I realized that it was a cat that had been dumped in our neighborhood, I asked my sister-in-law if she wanted it because she also had a very soft spot for cats and dogs, and she gladly took that cat in. And then the other one we just kept feeding, and it got old, and it died, but at least it had a somewhat happy life at the end. Poor thing. People can be cruel. There's that scripture that's that proverb that is the righteous man. I never can quote things properly, but it's a proverb. The righteous man looks after his beast. This can be your cat, your dog, your horse, your chickens. You're going to take good care of them. If you're a righteous person, you're going to do your best to take good care of the animals that you have. You're not going to be cruel to them. And another scripture that I actually forgot to bring up, which is another proverb. So last week, and I forgot to say this, I meant to say it, or Sunday when I was talking about tilling. There's the different methods. You have till, you have no till, you have this, you have that. And I was talking about how there's cases where tilling is still the best. There's certain types of crops and certain types of areas that is still, in my personal opinion, from what I found, it's still best to till. Even though I had the initial goal of having a completely no-till garden, I realized that in some cases tilling is the best. Well, then there are a few scriptures that talk about tilling the soil, and there's two in Proverbs that talk about, the man who tilleth his garden will have plenty of bread, will be satisfied with bread. But he that follow after vain persons is something. Maybe I did say it. I don't remember, but what is it? Will find poverty. The person who follows after vain persons will find poverty. So if you're too lazy to go till your garden, is obviously work your garden at all. You're not going to have food. You're probably going to starve because you're spending your time watching celebrities on your social media accounts rather than getting out there and tilling your garden. A righteous man regards the life of his beast. There you go. But the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. Exactly. That's it. That's absolutely the one I was talking about. So, but yeah, so it's interesting that there is a couple that do, it's not like they're saying that, you have to till everything. The obvious meaning of those proverbs about the tilleth the soil is in regards to, just doing the work, putting in a garden. It's going to be work no matter what. It's supposed to be. And there's another one where it talks about how the God ran them out of the garden so they could, out of the Garden of Eden, so they could go till. So from that point on, they had to start tilling the garden themselves. Things weren't just going to come up on their own. They had to do the work. So it doesn't mean you have to till everything. It doesn't mean you can't do like a back to Eden or a lasagna or something like that. But at the same time, I'm like, well, that just shows that they did have to till. Just like the medieval people, they tilled. And it talks about, in that same challenge, talking about there's a whole section. There's one of those where it talks about their different methods of tilling and some of the things that they tried. But they found that by tilling, not just tilling, but rotating their crops, letting that land go fallow. And now we're going to plant in this, and they'd have like one chunk of land that would lie fallow, one chunk of land for growing their grains, and another chunk for growing other types of things. And then they would rotate it. Now this one gets to rest, this one's for grains, and this one's for other things. And they found that it absolutely increased the production of food when they did that. So, and I can already tell, at least so far, that what I did, giving all my gardens a rest last year, is making a difference, a big difference, at least so far. We'll know the absolute truth as we continue on. And so I'll definitely be doing an update video on that at the end of the season and let you guys know. Well, I'll probably still keep keeping you updated as I go. But I'll definitely do a separate standalone video where I just gave you all the rundown on how different things were this year, assuming it is actually going to be that way. And thanks, Deb. Thanks for gathering those. Shall have poverty enough. Yep. And there's another one that's worded similar, but it seems like the second part, it says, about the fool, basically. It says something a little different. I don't remember what it is. That's how I got all the cats I ever had over the years, was adopting the ones that people dumped. I'm assuming that's what you mean. Man, we live between two mountains and people drop off pets on the mountain roads and they make their way down the houses here in the valley. It's so sad. It's so sad. And now it's like, because you don't want the responsibility, you're just gonna, it's not like you even actively go out and try to find a good home. You don't know if that animal is going to get attacked by wild animals and tore to shreds. So instead of being a good person and making sure you at least, sometimes life, things happen in life and we can't keep a pet, but, it's still going to be our responsibility to find that pet a new home and a good home, rather than, because we did have to do that with a dog at one point. She was a really good dog, but it just really wasn't working out, and we definitely wanted her to have a good home, and we found her an excellent home, and she spent the rest of her life with that family and was so happy, and I was so happy for her, because it was heartbreaking having to get rid of her, because she was a good dog. She was very sweet, but part of it was she needed to be in a place, because she was a bigger dog, where she'd have a lot more room to run, and just, yeah, stuff like that. And that's what we did. We found a good home for her, and she just, that family just, they fell in love with her. She fell in love with them, and I was so glad to see her end up in a good, happy home. And that's the responsibility we have. I mean, God even says that. I think that when we look at how modern farming practices when it comes to animals is so cruel. It's not about being a vegan and saying, oh, we can't ever eat animals. It's not that. You can still raise your animals in a way that they're treated properly. They're going to be, even so, even if you don't care about the animal and how they feel, treating an animal right, even if you're raising it for food, is going to be healthier for you too. But why would I want to treat an animal badly just because I'm raising it for food? I still want my chickens, even the ones that I'm going to have to turn into a dinner someday, I still want them to have a healthy, happy life. And that's our responsibility. So when God told Adam, that, you're going to be responsible, put the man over the beast. It wasn't so they can lord over him and treat him the way some of these modern, where they just beat the cow. I saw this clip where this one guy was kicking this cow in the face because it wasn't moving fast enough, kicking it in the face. It made me cry. I'm like, that's not right. If you can't treat an animal with love and respect, even if it's just going to become meat someday, I mean, how can you be expected to treat people and other humans properly? I don't know. So I believe that that's what God meant when he meant to rule over the animals. It wasn't to beat them and yeah, it was about taking care of what God has created. That means taking care of the land, taking care of the plants, and taking care of the animals as well as our family. That's just my personal belief and what I see. And then I realized why some people become vegans, because if that's all you see is that's how certain animals are raised, you wouldn't ever want to eat meat again if you knew that's how that poor animal had to live. But it doesn't have to be that way. This is why, most real farmers, they know better. and they know how to treat their animals if they're truly righteous people. So anyway, there's a little side thing for you there. And you guys are still talking about frosted cat food. Oh, hilarious. That's funny. The frosted cat food was supposed to be coated with milk powder, not sweetened coating. I figured it had to be something different, Charlotte, but then still, it's just uh that that gave me a chuckle and a snort. I snorted. Snort, snort. I do that sometimes when I laugh. Not quite as bad as Sandra Bullock and Miss Congeniality, but yeah, I snort sometimes when I laugh. Get me going. It happens. I used to get so embarrassed about it. I don't care anymore. I don't care. It's funny. It's like I was talking about the weird things I did as a kid. And you think, man, if anybody knew that I ate chalk as a kid, they would think I was so weird and not want to be my friend. And then the older you get, you realize that we all did weird things as weird when we were kids. Oh, and so I snort again. Okay, maybe it was because I had it in my brain. It made me snort. Okay, I like that movie. It's a cute movie. Anyway, people, I need to get going. I did eat some glue. I did the thing where you put the glue on the hand, you let it dry, and then you peel it off. What that was so satisfying. Why? I don't know. I don't remember if I ate crayons, but I think I did eat glue from time to time. I didn't get into sniffing glue though. This is a good day for me to. This was a bad day for me to stop sniffing glue. Oh my gosh, that's probably gonna get me in trouble for all I know. I didn't do that. I did eat it. I did do this, the spreading it on the palm and then peeling off when it was dry. Oh, I wiped her nose on a shirt sleeves. Anyway, for reals, for really reals. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And if you're having a beautiful day, get out there in that sun while you can. And thanks for coming in. Take care and God bless.